Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and today I will discuss the very interesting article of the latest White Dwarf, History of the Armours for the Horus Heresy. So, the article talks about all the armours that were used in the heresy, and it goes from Mark 1, actually, to Mark 6, which is very awesome, and the article is amazing actually. I have the White Dwarf here, sorry. Um, Let me find the thing. Oh yeah, there it is. So, which is one thing that's actually pretty dope is that they included Mark 1 armor. Theoretically, you would now think, wow, Mark 1 armor? That they didn't use that in the heresy. Maybe Amadeus, Duquesne, and someone else, but generally, Astartes weren't using those armors. There was these were Thunder Warrior armors. But no, that's actually wrong. Well, we're not wrong. They changed a little bit of this of the law in this, and they said that they at the very beginning of the Great Crusade, the Space Marines still wore the Mark One Thunder armor, but in the 200 years of the Great Crusade, it almost vanished. So you had a couple of Space Marines wearing them, and which is very nice. You have in this article it says you have Space Marines that were Black Shields wearing this armor because they salvaged it from maybe stockpiles of Forge Worlds, which is very cool. So you could now see how you would visualize pariah armor, for example, for the Black Shields. I could see them wearing the Mark 1 armor, the Thunder armor, which is super nice. So that's awesome. Then we go over to Mark 2. So after being done with Mark 1, they go over to Mark 2, which they said was produced in the millions, and that all the 2 million Space Marines at the beginning of the heresy, or close to 2 million Space Marines at the beginning of the heresy, could have been supplied with Mark 2 armor, but that it was replaced by traitor legions a lot with Mark 4 armor, because Mark 4 armor was supposed to be the pinnacle of power armor back in the day. So, but there was a couple of legions like the Iron Warriors, Iron Hands, Thousand Suns, and Death Guards who really loved using Mark 2 armor. I don't know why for the Thousand Suns, but for the Death Guard in Iron Warriors it makes sense. It was assault armor, was very well suited for their specific style of warfare. And this is even more exaggerated in the Mark III armor pattern, which was favored by the same legions and the Imperial Fists. The Imperial Fists really loved the Mark III armor, because generally, if you're defending something, you are showing your enemy your front side, which was more armored than Mark II front plate, because of the specific design choices for the Mark III armor, which is also pretty nice. So the article goes about all the armors and how every legion used them, or and which legion preferred them. So generally, you are talking about the article mentions that with every armor type there was maybe a new bolter type invented. So with the Mark II, you had the Phobos pattern bolter. That's the big chunky one with the sickle magazine. They were used in. They were usually given out to the Marines with Mark II armor because it was the earliest bolter pattern. But as the progression of armors went on, for example, when they had the Mark IV armor, which was a very refined armor that the Ultramarines and the Emperor's Children and the Sons of Horus loved for its maneuverability and for the sheer amount uh, of flexibility it gave them, they also made the Tigris pattern bolter, which, if I remember correctly, couldn't even fire fully automatically. It had a 15-round box magazine, and it had a smaller caliber, but was more accurate than the Phobos pattern bolter. And then you had the Umbra pattern bolter, which was developed with the Mark 6 armor plate, and that's something different now. We didn't have that. As I said, we are now at the Mark IV stage, and the Mark IV, as I said, like Horus gave the Mark IV plates to the lead more. So everyone had every armor. Basically, this is what the article says, and that's nothing new. That's what the article. That's what they said on the weekend as always. So don't get angry. It's nothing changing in the law, except the Mark One bit that some Black Shields used Mark One in the Heresy. So Mark IV was generally given out to all the legions because it was just better in so many points, in so many things that the War Master actually directed more Mark IV towards the traitor legions, but everyone had it because it was just such an awesome and flexible tactical armor. So basically, you had all the legions that like mobility more have having using have been using Mark IV, but as I said before, everybody can use every armor. Then you have the Mark 5 armor, and this is actually very interesting. As you all know, I love Mark 5. I really do. And here they kind of explain that there's two types of Mark 5, sorry. That there's two types of Mark 5. The first type of Mark 5 is the production Mark 5, which is basically reverse engineered Mark 4. So I talked with a friend once, and we said, well, Mark 5 looks a little bit like it's reverse engineered from Heresy Armours. And this article actually actually put a stamp on it and said, yeah, most of it is reverse engineered Mark 4, which you can see in the helmet and in the knee pads and so on. That's what the article describes here. This is the production pattern Mark 5. This is the Mark 5 armor with the bonding studs all over the place and the shoulder pads without trim, right? This is the Mark 5 armor we see as Mark 5 armor. Then there's the non-production pattern, which is basically just Franken armor, which means you could have Mark 2 legs, Mark 3 chest plate, and Mark 4 helmet, and Mark 6 shoulder plates, whatever you can find. And that's like it also goes into detail here which armor types you could actually interchangeably use very easily and which ones you can't use easily. So Mark II and Mark III are basically interchangeable without any interface changes for the armor. But if you would use Mark II or Mark III with Mark IV, Mark V obviously because it's basically Mark IV just reverse engineered, and Mark VI, you would get huge problems if you wouldn't change the interfaces and the armor wouldn't really work. But with Mark IV, 6, and 5, you could basically just interchange the parts, except for the non-production pattern Mark V, which is just a heresy suit, an armor suit made out of everything they could find. So that's actually pretty nice. Also, it mentions that the World Eaters didn't really take care of their armors, and that a lot of them used Mark V. And I think that's a cool nuance because they actually went into Ultramar, which was like enemy territory, and they fought the Ultramarines there and they lost badly, so I could really see them using a lot of Mark V. And then we come to the most contagious armor out there for the Horus Heresy since the box set leaked. The Mark 6 power armor. A lovely armor pattern, if you ask me. I love it to bits. It looks awesome. And it says here that at the beginning of the heresy, the suits they had for Mark 6 was very limited in every legion except the Raven Guard and the Alpha Legion, who basically maybe just dressed up as Raven Guard and got some. But yeah, then again, so you had at the beginning Mark 6 armor was extremely rare because it was just a prototype and it was given out to legions for testing, and it wasn't even made for frontline combat. It was made for special units like Seekers, I believe. I could see Seekers using it or Recon Marines using it because of the enhanced sighting range and the enhanced sensors, which are in the beak actually. It's not just to resemble a raptor; it's also to resemble like to have some enhanced targeting arrays in the beak. So that's actually nice. But what it also adds to the lore, and that's definitely a teaser for the box set, is that at the end of the heresy, this armor was actually very, very, very out there. So a lot of legions had the Mark 6 armor, and it makes sense. In the Martian Schism, the Imperial Fist stole Mark 4 and Mark 6 armor. Like hundred thousands of suits of these armors. So at the end of the heresy, you actually had a lot of the Mark 6 armors in production and in use at the legions, and it makes sense. If you look at the current 40k kits, for Space Marines and for Chaos Space Marines even, you see a lot of Mark 6. And this is what I kinda understand here. Obviously they want to sell you the box. I mean, they are a company and they want to make sense. But I rather have this lore explanation that at the end of the heresy, basically every Astartes, if you read Slave to Darkness, this makes more sense to you, but I won't spoil it here. That the production of this armor ramped up because everybody knew how to make it, and every legion was so bad for supplies that they actually took it. I'm not saying, okay, go out there and make a full Death Guard Mark 6 armor, but I'm also not saying make a full Death Guard army not using Mark 6 armor. Because at the end of the day, the Astartes would use any power armor they can. Because they were so needing for supplies. Like, the Horus Heresy was such a devastating war. You didn't have everyone at the end of the heresy. At the end of the heresy, the most common type was Mark 5. This was mentioned in one of the black books. Like, at the end of the heresy, most people were wearing Mark 5 because they were salvaging armors. The Iron Warriors and Slaves to Darkness had multiple clips with them, clips of ammunition, but none of them were full. And they were the traitors. So you can imagine how the loyalists would have taken these armors, right? If you can give me an armor suit, I would take it. Because I need it to protect myself from bolter shells, right? So I actually like this explanation a lot. It makes sense. It's an in-universe explanation. So thank you for this, for mentioning this. And also, at the end of the heresy, at the very end of the Siege of Terror, there was some Mark 7 suits in very limited quantities. So if you say the last days of the Siege of Terror, that's why we haven't seen them in any of the Siege of Terror novels now, and the traitors basically already are at the Sanctum Imperialis. So I guess if you really want to have a last days of the Horus Heresy army, you could use some Mark 7 parts for your Imperial Fist, White Scars, or Blood Angels. But it specifically mentions here that it was at the last days of the heresy. So, yeah. I feel like they made this distinction for the accuracy of the setting, obviously. But if you want to use your Mark 7 Marines, I mean, use them. If you are dead set on using Mark 7 Marines already, then nobody can stop you anyways, and it's your hobby, do whatever you like. If you want to do the, if you want to have the armor accurate to the setting, though, I really wouldn't use Mark 7 parts. I really wouldn't. Especially after this article said it was just the last days of the Siege of Terra. But hey, that's just my opinion. Don't let it deter you from using whatever. And I guess one arm and whatever, a leg with some work could always be heresy appropriate and made into Artificer armor or Mark 5 even. So this was the video about this very awesome article. If you can, pick up this White Dwarf. I think it's the current one, I believe. So it's 469 with a Saurus warrior on it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day. Have a good day. Stay healthy. Keep the heresy train rolling. Like, comment, and subscribe. And bye bye.